Welcome to the Girlspring Women in the Arts podcast. This project is made possible by the Alabama State Council on the Arts and is a partnership between the Birmingham-based teen girls empowerment platform, Girlspring, and C. Jane Wright, a website and community for women who write. This podcast gives the young women of Girlspring the opportunity to interview women from a wide range of arts fields, including literature, theater, dance, visual arts, and fashion. In this episode, Girlspring Springboarder Price Kilgore interviews Salaam Green, the inaugural poet laureate for the City of Birmingham, Alabama. Salaam is also the founder of Literary Healing Arts. In this talk, Salaam discusses the power of poetry, her forthcoming book, and much more. And if you've ever wondered what exactly is a poet laureate, Salaam is going to explain that to you. Let's listen.
Okay, so I'm here with Salaam Green, and my first question for her is, what was it like when you first learned you had been selected as Birmingham's first poet laureate?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I absolutely love Girlspring, and nice to meet you, Pride. Love your name. What was like when I found out I was Birmingham's first poet laureate? So whenever there's a first, you never know what to expect. So I didn't know what to expect, but I was super, super thrilled and super excited. Love poetry. Had been working in community for a long, 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 long time. And I just was like really thrilled. I also was surprised and really like shocked, not at my ability, but also that there's so many wonderful artists and poets here in the city of Birmingham. And I was just really honored and happy and excited. Yeah.
Yeah. For people that don't know, what is a poet laureate, and can you explain what that role means and why is it important?
Absolutely. So first of all, everyone I think should feel comfortable if they don't know what a poet laureate is. I did not know until I started getting kind of further down in my writing and poetry career. I tell people sometimes I have to make sure I spell it right because every time, even now when I write it, I'm like, oh, I hope I spelled it right. So I have to go back and look through it. But a poet laureate is an advocate for poetry, civic poetry in a city or in a state or in a government or in a nation. So it's just your biggest advocate for poetry in your community that you live in.
It's great. Okay, so what has been your most memorable moment during your first year as a poet laureate? And tell us more about your book, The Other Revival.
Oh my gosh, my most memorable moments. I've done a whole lot of different things in the city that have been super fun and super exciting. I tell people I did my first chapbook last year when I started. So a chapbook is a smaller poetry book. So it's a poetry book that has less pages than a collection of poems. And so the city wanted to do something to invite people into the poet laureate position because it's an inaugural position, the first position that they have. So I got the opportunity to sit around the table with the wonderful creatives and communication folks at the City of Birmingham who have been awesome in cheerleading this poet laureate program as the first poet laureate in the City of Birmingham. So one of the most exciting things was having my first chapbook, which was Once Upon a Magic City. And I got an opportunity to work with the local artists, to do the cover art, and to do some of the other beautiful art in the book. But I got a chance to write poems about all the beautiful landmarks here in the city and think about ways in which we can imagine what our city is and dream what we want our city to become and to be.
That's so awesome. Okay. How has your personal journey in Birmingham shaped your voice as a writer and activist?
How has my personal journey? Yes, well, I will share that one way is that it gave me the confidence to write my first long form poetry book, which is The Other Revival, which will be coming out in June, around Juneteenth, June 17th. And the opportunity and The Other Revival is a wonderful book that I got the confidence to write as I start doing poetry in the community and poetry in different spaces as a poet in residence for the Wallace Center for Arts and Reconciliation, which is a former plantation here in Shelby County. And I started to interview and listen to the stories of Black and white descendants of enslavement from that particular plantation, and I wrote custom poems. So I'm also a certified listener poet. So I look at poetry as medicine and as health. So I sat with Black and white descendants and I listened to their stories and I wrote custom poems. And to me, that was the revival, the other revival, the homecoming that we're all hoping for. And all of us have a revival that we're looking for. So being a part of the Birmingham community, being a part of poetry, being a part of writing, being part of the arts really gave me the confidence and the courage to do a big project and to really listen to other people's stories and really to believe that I could write poems that are based on those stories.
But what's the process like for the other revival? Like learning all the descendants and stuff.
Well, the first process is listening, really listening to who people are. And I believe stories kind of help us toward the path of humanity. And everyone has a story and everyone has their own voices. And so part of my process was really deeply listening to those stories. And after listening to those stories, asking people custom questions such as, tell me a little bit more about yourself. Questions such as, if you could dream of being anywhere in the world, where would you dream? Who dreamed you here? Some of the questions, of course, about having being a descendant of a space that has a kind of storied past or a historical narrative that is not necessarily something we celebrate, asking those questions of, okay, where's your heart? And how do we kind of heal from this? How do we repair? What does reconciliation look like? And after listening to those stories, kind of me going into my own little writing hole, and writing those custom poems, listening to the lyrics, listening to rhythm, listening to rhyme, and making sure that I'm telling stories that really honor the voices of the people whose lives have been transformed as a result of these particular communities.
Yes. What role does poetry play in fostering community and healing social justice?
Yes. So there's a book out now, a poetry book out now called Poetry is Not a Luxury. And it's really not it's really not a luxury. A lot of people think, poetry, I think it's beautiful. It is beautiful, but at the same time, it is political. And it also gives us an opportunity to use our voices towards something that other people might not see visibly. And so for me, I think poetry plays the biggest role in social justice by helping people to express themselves, by helping folks use their imagination outside of the world that they see now, because you have to see something bigger than yourself. You have to dream of something bigger than yourself. You have to dream of the world that you want to live in. And poetry allows us to put the narrative, the words, the story, the rhyme, the rhythm, the lyric to that.
Yeah, of course. Can you share a poem or a moment in your career that has profoundly impacted you or your audience?
I don't know. I can't share a poem because I don't remember poems anymore because gratefully I don't do that anymore. But there's one of the that has really impacted me in my career has really been the work of lots of social justice poets who go to work every single day and then come home and write, whether that's nonfiction, poetry, whatever genre they're writing in. And one of my favorite poets is June Jordan, who part of the Black arts movement, wonderful Jamaican Caribbean poet. And some of their words that they really resonate with me and has changed the trajectory of how I do poetry and how I live my life is that June Jordan really talks about the fact that we are responsible for our own selves. And poetry reminds me of that. So that helps me to dream when I think of June Jordan and when I think of Sonia Sanchez, who is from Birmingham, Alabama, and who's in her 90s and wrote poetry probably on some of the same places that, now as an inaugural poet laureate that I'm walking or that young folks are walking today. So just having those those people who have come before me as examples is really a model for how I do the work I do.
Do you have any of your own poems that you hope will inspire other people?
Yes. Artists hope everything they do, like, okay, somebody look at this, somebody come read this, anybody, anywhere. And I oftentimes say, if just one person gets it, I hope they do read this. The one poem that I did during the November election series, or during the election season, was a poem to, at the time, to Kamala Harris, and I was able to do that with some of the folks who were running her campaign. And the whole idea wasn't to talk about who are you going to vote for, any of that kind of thing. The whole thing was asking the question of what kind of America do we want to become? What kind of America do we want to be? What kind of American do you want to be? What kind of nation do we want to be? So that whole poem that I wrote about, once again, I write a lot about dreaming, write a whole lot about justice, write a whole lot about religion and spirituality. But that whole poem that was all about us asking ourselves this question and a call to action. So that really was a poem that I kind of do a lot and think a lot about. What must we do, America was the name of that poem. What must we do, to make sure that our youth are transformed? What must we do, America? What must we do to make sure that our state, that our South is redefined? What must we do, America? We must become the America we wish to see. We must become the America we wish to be. We must become the America that we want to live in. What must we do, America? So what must we do is the question that poem is asking.
It's really impactful. As someone deeply involved in empowering women, how do you use poetry to inspire and uplift young girls, especially those in marginalized communities?
Absolutely. I grew up in a small rural town called Greensboro, Alabama. And as a little girl, my whole, I think, imagination was how I survived and was part of my trajectory of the journey that I'm on now. So it's sort of like I still, sometimes when I'm writing, I'm doing things, I'm thinking I'm still that little girl who's underneath this oak tree, as a little girl with my diary with the golden key, writing to myself, that kind of thing. So the biggest way that I think that poetry can inspire, and I hope I use poetry to inspire young girls, and particularly young girls who are from marginalized spaces in the world, is to know that they matter, and to also know they can be anything that they want to be, but their imagination can take them to so many spaces, and poetry is a way that they can dream themselves free.
What advice would you give to aspiring poets who want to use their art as a tool for change?
Do it. We're waiting for someone to say, here's a proposal, here's some grant funding, and here's an opportunity. Or, I talk to a lot of writers, and I've been in a whole lot of writing spaces, and so many writers are concerned, as they should be, about the product. But the process is what is transforming. The process of listening, like I did with the other revival, my book that's coming out, that's the process. Yes, I hope the product is beneficial and effective, but the process of listening. So I would say to other artists, think about the process of listening. Think about the process of being in space with others. Think about the process of building resiliency and community with others by utilizing art and writing prompts. So I think that's just as important as the product is the process.
Yeah. Lastly, what advice do you wish you could give to your younger self, and what advice would you give to young girls today?
Yes, so thank you for asking that. So that is such a great question, because I'm an artist in residence at UAB, and I do this journaling club for staff and that kind of thing. And today I just did a journaling club meeting, and we had this wonderful psychologist who was on and who talked about the whole idea around future self and former self. And so I don't think I would give any advice to my younger self, because my younger self already knows everything that my younger self needs to know. I think the advice that I would give to my future self and to other girls is to always trust your intuition, trust the voice that lives in you, and lead that from the truest point and the truest part of your values and your humanity.
Well, thank you for meeting with me today. I really had a great time. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great meeting with you, and I appreciate it. And good luck on everything beautiful you're doing in the world. Thank you.